Hello, if you are watching this, you have chosen to make a shape pumpkin. I hope you heard the story Christopher Pumpkin, because that is a really great book. It's a new to me story, and I just giggled when I listened to it. So you will need for this project a black crayon. You will need a pair of scissors. You will need some kind of paint. It could be watercolor, it could be tempera paint. And if you are an at-home learner and you don't have paint, you could certainly use crayon, you could use a marker, or you could use a piece of orange paper for your shaped pumpkin. So the first thing we're going to do today is on a white piece of paper, you want to draw a circle or an oval. So we're talking about how shape, and we've talked about how when a dot moves, it makes a mark, and when a line closes in on itself, it makes a shape. So we're going to make a large circle or oval by making that line come all the way around and close in on itself. Notice I'm trying to draw it as big as I can. Doing a very small circle isn't going to work. I'm almost touching the sides of my paper here. Very large circle or oval. Once you have that drawn, you're going to use water and your set of paints, and you're going to paint your pumpkin. Now, we all know that pumpkins look orange to us, right? But sometimes if you look closely, you might see a little yellow or a little red in your pumpkin. So I'm going to start out with orange, and if you're here with me at school, you're using a Biggie Cakes. So I'm going to get those nice and thick. And I'm just going to paint inside my circle. And if you go outside of your circle a little bit like I just did, that's okay. If you want to switch a color and add a little yellow or a little red, you may do that. We aren't going to use any other colors though. So yellow, red, and orange are the colors we're going to use for this pumpkin. Make sure you wash your brush whenever you make a switch. I like to mix that yellow with that orange a little bit. It makes it a little brighter. And there is my orange circle. That's all you're going to need the paint for. So once that's done, you can take care of your water and your brush and get that out of the way. I'm going to do the same to give this a chance to dry. Okay, so I've given my painting a chance to dry. It dries pretty quickly, friends, but you are going to have to give it a little bit of a chance to dry. If it's still a little damp, it still will be cuttable. So I left my scissors on the table behind me. So the next thing you're going to do is cut out your pumpkin. Cut out your orange circle. I neglected to say at the beginning, as far as supplies you're going to need, that you're also going to need some black and white paper cut into different shapes. Or you can cut those shapes yourself if you are an at-home learner. So there is my pumpkin. Now I get to give this pumpkin some personality. First, if you want to go back in with your black crayon, you can do that. And I'm going to start at the top, and right over the top of my orange, I'm going to do some curvy lines going from the top down to the bottom to kind of give my pumpkin those ridges or lines that pumpkins have. Then I'm going to look through. I have this whole pile of shapes. There's triangles, rectangles, and squares in both black and white. So I'm going to use a black rectangle to stick here up at the top for my pumpkin stem. And if it's a little too fat for you, or you don't think it's going to work well for you, like the shape it is, you can trim it with your scissors and make it a smaller or a skinnier rectangle. That's absolutely fine. So I'm going to stick that on. So there's my stem for my pumpkin. Now the fun part is making the face. You should have a lot of squares of white and black. So I'm going to take white, and you'll notice in the shape pile there are no circles, and that's because I want to work on cutting circles. And cutting circles can be really, really hard, but I have an easy way to do it. If you take a square that has 4 corners, circles have 0 corners. So if you take that square and you cut the corners off, and while you're cutting the corners off, you see how I'm turning the paper? There, I cut that corner off. I'm going to cut the next one off, and I'm going to turn the paper as I cut that corner off. Now it looks almost like a letter U. And I'm going to turn the paper as I cut this corner off. Now it looks like a raindrop. I'm going to turn the paper as I cut this corner off. All of a sudden I have a circle and then a pile of corners which I can move out of my way. So that's like a pretty easy way to cut your circle. It might not come out looking like the most perfect circle the first few times you do it, but we're all learning, and that's okay. That is true of any size square. So if I take this square and I cut the corners off, I'll get a circle as well. The biggest trick, boys and girls, is to turn your paper with this hand while you're cutting with this hand. And that's how you get it to be round. So I've got one. I'm going to use that. It's a nice big eye. So I'll do that again. Now I'm going to go a little faster because, you know, I've practiced doing this cutting corner thing my whole life, so I know how to do it pretty quick. Okay. So there's my 2 eyes. Now, you might not want circle eyes, and that is okay too. You might decide that for your pumpkin, you want rectangle eyes, and that is perfectly okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give my pumpkin some pupils, and I do think that everybody should give their pumpkin some pupils because it just gives your pumpkin some personality. So no matter what shape eye you have, cut out some pupils. Now, your pupils could be different shapes. I'm going to do circles right there. I kind of like that. Notice I haven't glued anything yet because I want to wait until I'm all done to make sure that's what I want. The coolest thing about a project like this is, I'm going to do that shape nose. And I think I'm going to do a triangle mouth. And then maybe I'll use some white paper and cut some smaller squares to give my pumpkin some teeth. Ooh, I'm kind of liking that pumpkin. Now, here's what I mean by you can completely change the look of your pumpkin. So there's my pumpkin. Let's say I decide I do want to change this out and make these circle eyes. Well, that really changes the look of my pumpkin. And let's say I want to change this out and give it a triangle nose. Well, that certainly changes the look of my pumpkin. Or maybe I want to cut out the smallest dot I can cut out. Well, that certainly changes the look of my pumpkin. Another thing that can change the look of your pumpkin is eyebrows. There is an eyebrow. If I tilt my eyebrows, these are just rectangles. If I tilt them that way, my pumpkin looks a little worried. If I tilt them this way, my pumpkin looks a little angry and scary. If I tilt them this way, he looks a little bit different, doesn't he? I also can do some, I'm going to do a big circle, I think. I'm going to change the mouth of this pumpkin completely. I'm going to get a big black square and cut those corners off to do a big circle. And cut it in half to do a semicircle. And have that be my mouth. Oh yeah, I'm kind of liking this. And I think I'm going to change this again. I like the idea of a triangle nose. And I think I am going to change back. So that's what's cool about this project, is you can get it exactly the way you want it before you start gluing things down. When you glue things down, take off a few pieces at a time. Lots of glue if you're using a glue stick. If you're using a glue bottle, dot, dot, not a lot. I'm going to put that down like that. Ooh, you could even do a white nose and not a black nose. I think maybe I'll do that. I'm going to use my tooth for a nose instead. So I'm going to come back in just a minute and show you what it looks like all done. So here's one of my pumpkins all done. I have everything glued on just the way I want it. Instead of using black for my lines, I use some white and orange and yellow oil crayon, which also gives it a really good look, so you could choose that as well. And this is my finished shape pumpkin. The last thing I'm going to do when I'm done with this is to flip this over, put glue on the entire pumpkin, and glue it down on a black piece of paper. And to help it stay, I like to flip it over and rub it from the back. So have fun making your shape pumpkin. Make sure you take a picture of it and upload it to me in Seesaw or Dojo.